Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome. You are tuned in to Bigmikes blog. I am your host, Big Mike, coming to you from my home. Welcome. First and foremost, I guess I want to send a thank you to everyone who's watched my Colin Kaepernick blog so far. I didn't really need much word of mouth with that blog. People have been watching it. I've already gotten over 50 views in 2 days, which is not that common for my blogs. I mostly get maybe 10 or 15 views at the most for some of them. So thank you for those who have watched it. The purpose for this blog today is I don't normally do rebuttals to blogs, but I kind of felt like, to some degree, I felt like I needed to do a rebuttal for this one. I've gotten a lot of flack, actually, from doing my Colin Kaepernick blog. No regrets. I don't regret doing the blog, but I just wanted to do a rebuttal, talk about the flack that I have received so far. So basically, the flack I've gotten so far is I've gotten a lot of negative flack, actually. Basically, a few people have made comments on it. They weren't favorable. One person proceeded to call me a dumb nigger and commented on the blog and said dumb nigger, and that's basically all they said. Which kind of sucked, was a little bit sad, because I mean, I don't normally get comments on my blog, so I was all excited to see what they put, and then I read that and I'm like, oh, lovely. So if you are curious to see my stance on Colin Kaepernick, you are more than welcome to watch that blog. It's right up on YouTube right now, so check it out. But I'm talking about this because it just seems like it's gotten to a point where it's so divisive. It's become such a divisive issue. And a lot of people have their opinions about it, but a lot of them are just rooted in nothing, really. Like I was actually reading, I was being silly today, and I don't know why I do this, but I was on Facebook, like most people are, and I was reading, they have a picture of Colin Kaepernick posted of him kneeling, because the 49ers played last night, and he kneeled during the national anthem in that one, and people had, there was over 30,000 comments on that alone, and people were just pissed, and a majority, I would say, like about 70% of the comments were negative towards Colin Kaepernick and the stance that he's taken, which is crazy to me. All the news pundits, all the sports casters have had their opinions about it. Most of it's actually been split down the middle in terms of people that support it and people that don't like it and don't appreciate it. Actually, Michael Rappaport, the actor, went as far as to say that they should. Well, I guess his stance was they could protest, but just not on 9/11. So everyone has their opinions about it. Again, my stance on it is very simple. I support what Colin Kaepernick and the other NFL players are doing. And I mean, I talked about it in my other blog as to why I feel that way. I just was very surprised. I mean, was I surprised? Kind of, and not really, in terms of the negative feedback that I got. And initially, when I read the comments, my first instinct wasn't to respond, because I didn't want to give that person, Mad Max is his name, and I'll talk about him in a little bit. I didn't want to give Mad Max the light of day in terms of making him feel like he affected me in some capacity. But at the same time, I don't want to ignore what he said either, because I feel like ignoring it only just makes it seem like it doesn't bother me, and it's not something that affects me, and it does. But it doesn't bother me in the way where I'm going to respond negatively and cuss him out on comments and all that kind of crazy crap, because I feel like one of my friends, I had posted what he had said on Instagram, and one of my friends, dear friend, I really appreciate her stepping in. She was like, send me your link to your blog. I'm going to comment and cuss him out and all this. And I almost said, don't do it. But I realized that she was so upset about what he had said that she felt the need to say something to him, which I appreciated. But I mean, at the time, again, I didn't want to give him the leeway and give him the notoriety. And also too, and I didn't want to, and also too, the reason why I didn't comment or respond at the time too is because I realized that they're online. These are internet trolling people, who are trolling people's stuff and want to make negative comments because they're behind a computer screen or behind a screen. And it's a lot easier to be bold and brave and say a bunch of shit to someone online as opposed to saying it in person. So I'm not saying that this Mad Max individual or other people who have commented would sit there and not say that to my face. I'm just saying that the likelihood, if they saw me in person, the odds of them actually calling me a dumb nigger is very slim to shit. And I've been called a nigger a lot in my life, okay? In my job at the youth shelter, I was called it probably more times than I can count by the youth. And I had to have thick skin and be able to deal with it, because if I didn't and decided to go whoop their ass, I would be out of a job, and I had to think of the bigger picture and not let that get to me, which was hard. And it's not an easy thing to not, and there's been instances where people have called and said that word to me and I've gotten upset and I've literally wanted to strangle the shit out of them, but I had to show restraint and not do that. And again too, like, there's people that are saying, oh, he could protest but just not in that way and this and that, and other athletes have protested and this and that, and but they're not disrespecting the flag and all this. I remember Bart Starr, a commentator for CBS NFL Sunday. He made an interesting point, and it was true. Over the summer, during, I think, the ESPYs, which is like the sports equivalent of the Grammys, LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony, Chris Paul, Dwayne Wade, all four of these prominent black athletes, before the ESPYs even started, did a nice speech, a lovely speech on racial equality and highlighting the racial injustice that's going on in America, which was great. It was a great speech, really eloquent, really thought out and planned. But I guarantee you, most of people that I'm mentioning this to, like as I'm saying this, most of y'all have either forgot that happened or didn't even know that they even did the speech, because it literally was talked about for 2 days and then people moved on to something else. The Colin Kaepernick thing has gone on. He did that almost 2.5, 3 weeks ago, and we're still talking about it now. And I think something as bold as him not standing for the national anthem, he had to do something bold in order for it to be talked about, because otherwise it would have just got swept under the rug and no one would have talked about it. And the same stuff would be going on and we would still be complaining about it. At least now, as much as it probably pisses a lot of people off that, we're talking about race and all this type of stuff, it needs to be discussed and talked about, and we need to come up with solutions on ways to combat this at the end of the day, because that's ultimately what it boils down to, is coming up with solutions. So in hindsight, in the grand scheme of things, it's a good thing that he brought it up. And another point that I want to bring up too, and actually another athlete brought this up too. So when people say these athletes are dumb and they should just stick to sports, these athletes are very smart, because Charles Woodson, a retired cornerback, a retired football player, actually brought up a point that the writer of the national anthem was a slave owner. So everyone talking about home of the free, he wasn't talking about black people. He was talking about himself, because he was a slave owner, and I thought that was very interesting and poignant to bring up, just a lot of things. I just thought it was very interesting too. And even like I was watching it, like it was funny, like in just little things, like subtle things I noticed. Like I remember I was watching like X-Men cartoons on Netflix last week, and I was watching it, and I was seeing how like the bigotry in that show, and that's like a cartoon for kids, and you see like the racial, like how charged it is in terms of being divisive, like, oh, you nasty, horrible mutants, and treating them as second-class citizens. And I read a post on Facebook actually talking about Stan Lee, who created X-Men, and how he created X-Men in the image of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, in that Martin Luther King was seen as Xavier, and Magneto was seen as Malcolm X. And when I really thought about it, and I've actually watched the show as an adult, you kind of see how that kind of is true in some instances. So it's good. I mean, it opens your eyes. It makes you see things. And as you get older, and I think the key too is not to be ignorant to certain things, to be open-minded and to listen. And I think the biggest problem with what's going on right now is people are so stuck in their ways and they don't want to listen to the other side, and they're just ignorant to a lot of things. So they're just stuck on their own opinion and they're not open to listening to the other side. And that's where the problems and the disconnect comes in. So that's my opinion on that. But I said I wasn't going to respond initially, like I said to Mad Max, the man who made the dumb nigger remark. But I'm not going to say anything negative or derogatory to this gentleman or person, whoever they are. But I will say one thing, that I'm not a dumb nigger. Just in case you guys were curious and wondering, I'm not a dumb nigger. Um, I'm lucky enough that I work in a field in social services where I impact people's lives and I've been able to touch people's lives. And that's not to brag and boast. I just know the impact that I've been able to make in people's lives. And I'm very proud to say that. And I've probably been able to make a difference in more people's lives now at 32 than you will probably make in your lifetime at all, however old or whoever you are. So before you sit there and make a comment like that, maybe take the time and actually talk to the person and get to know them first, engage them first, before you make an ignorant, stupid comment on the internet that you're anonymous too, and no one can really rebuttal. Or I could rebut it, but I'd rather be more intelligent than you are, because clearly I think I've showed and showcased that based off my blogs and just based off the person that I am. So I'll leave it at that, Mad Max. And whoever else wants to make comments or negative comments, that will be my response to you as well. Because this will be the last time I actually discuss this topic, because I kind of want to move on, and I don't want to kind of belabor the point. But I will leave you guys with this little speech that I saw on Instagram, if I can get my phone to work, of course. Um, I've seen a lot of comments on the Colin Kaepernick stuff, a lot of quotes, a lot of people have opinions, and a lot of people have stuff to say. But out of all the things that I've seen and read and heard, um, this is probably the one thing that I've read that I actually really loved. And if I can get it for you guys, I will. Hold on. Yeah, my phone's not working, unfortunately, so I won't be able to show it to you. But